Righty. So this talk was originally going to be, you probably saw earlier on, if you noted, the gigantic bit of text that was on Dean's bit for my bit. That had a byword about talking about Gordon Codex. So I'm just going to call out, I hardly talk about Gordon Codex in this one. It's kind of more about the thing I'm building, which is probably more interesting than anybody sort of seeing how I use Gordon Codex right now, although maybe not, there might be something to talk about with that at some point. But yeah, so I'm trying to build my own GUI. I am going to talk about how I've gone about doing that and where it's about today. So let's see if this works. Click. Here we go. A little bit about me. Actually, anybody who knows me here probably knows me more for being an engineering manager at ANZ right now. That is my quote-unquote day job. But I'm not going to talk about any of that here today at all, because actually I'm not really on the tools during the day very much at all. And what tends to end up happening is I'll always be hacking on my own stuff on evenings, weekends, other bits. So this is all about that. And the apps I make tend to be things that play with video. I've got a 2-channel video mixer app that's been in the store since 2015. Lets you, whatever you play with on the app, you can perform that mixed video out through a connected screen or a projector in a club, that sort of thing. So yeah, my apps are more in that area. And yeah, make a little bit of money with it, but it's kind of fun money really, rather than quitting a day job. Okay, but yeah, why make a new GUI? Why is SwiftUI not enough? What's going on here? A little bit of context. The apps I make, as I just mentioned, are not really typical JSON pretty printers or notes apps or whatever. They look a bit like this, right? And I've got, if you look at this, you've got a dashboard. What you're mixing is up there. You can trigger all these things there. And I'm already at a point where I'm trying to customize down and sort of escape a lot of the default UI, really. So that's today, and yeah, it can even look like that. Over there on the right-hand side, you've got a theme that is lovingly called Pineapple Lumps. There's a bit of a nod, which yeah came out of getting my theming engine wrong, and then I looked at it and thought, sell it, I'll keep that on in. And analytics-wise, apparently people do actually use it, so it remains. But yeah, why? Well, something happened in September. I hadn't used the betas over the period, and I installed Xcode 26, built against the new SDK, and went, shit, like things are broken. And then I ran, just out of curiosity, I pulled back to the previous SDK, things were fine, and I had a bit of a falling out with Apple in that moment, because I then had work to do. So I flicked the property key to just go, yeah, running compatibility mode, future me will worry about this. I've got at least a year before Apple get rid of the flag, and yeah, sodom. So, but the other factor in why? Well, yeah. Audio apps more often look like this, and the type of app I'm making is closer to that scene. And I've been trying to get ideas about, okay, if I want to rebuild my UI to be a bit more accepted by that scene, I need to tilt in this sort of direction a bit more. So what ends up happening really is that I've got a SwiftUI app that's trying not to be SwiftUI quite often. I know you can get there, but yeah, this is where I'm at. Another factor, yeah, this thing happened the other month. Android was accepted as a runtime on Swift.org and moved from being a community effort into being more of a holistic thing. And I've not played with it too deeply yet. Had a bit of a look at Hello World, but like, I'm looking at that and going, well, okay, if I have the GUI bit sorted, then maybe I can use that and link it together, and then maybe it's able to run that side on Android as well as on iOS at some point. Right, so you can see the idea is building up here. Like this is the idea that wouldn't quit sort of back in September. Also, the other factor, why? Well, I wanted to see if I could. I make my indie apps to have fun, right? Otherwise, I just watch TV, go and play a game or do something, right? Like my fun time is doing this, and so whatever I'm doing has to be fun for me. And I'd looked at cross-platform stacks. I tried to play with KMP, CMP. I looked at Flutter, all these things, sort of thinking about if I wanted to bring my apps to Android as well. I stopped having fun. It was like, yeah, I'm learning another stack that I didn't really want to learn. Okay. So yeah, there we go. I can do what I want. That's the real why with this, if we get into it. So okay, how did I do it? I'm back in September and this idea is building up. And the reality of that is that I spent a lot of time trying to figure out the lay of the land if I really wanted to do this. Spoke to a few people that I knew, actually the creators of both of the apps that I showed earlier on, and literally just asked them outright, how do you do your UI? And both of them have got their own UI system. They've been around a while, so it's OpenGL. Yeah, they sort of said like, yeah, we're not open sourcing it. It's a bag of spanners. It's just as what we need it to do. But that also planted the seed. Okay, they're treating the whole screen as a canvas and then choosing what they want to lay out into it. Brilliant. And yeah, I messed around with Claude, made a few proof of concepts. One of the first things I did is that I had Claude wrap up C++ GUI library called Dear IM GUI, which often gets used for like menus in games and debug screens. And I got it working. I had a canvas. There it is. It was displaying widgets and things. But it looked like a debug screen in the simulator, just there. And so a few attempts across September, but then I sort of started to build this view of what I wanted to do. Yeah, so that let me kind of figure out, well, okay, what do I want? This concept kept coming up a lot, like immediate mode GUIs, where everything is being, if you think about your layout and you think about what you actually want to display on the screen, an immediate mode GUI is executing it every frame. And it's going, right, okay, what am I displaying right now? So quite different in some ways to what we tend to expect with reactive paradigms and the way things tend to load in SwiftUI and everything else. But seemed like worth a bit of a crack. So let's see what happens here. I definitely wanted to go cross-platform in one way or another, like the Android thing was a seed planted, so everything that I wanted to build, if I'm building something, needed to respect that. So that means not using certain Apple APIs, which we'll get to in a bit. But yeah, that was sort of a defining constraint. And then another thing there is that if we're executing every single frame a second, yes or no, I'm going to thrash the hell out of the battery if I'm doing that and I've got a complicated scene. But there's ways we can optimize that later, and I don't believe in early optimization, so I've kind of gone, sod it, we will see how we go. But the simple state system means that I don't want to be thinking about lots of plumbing in terms of like, if I want state values in the system I'm building, and then something else reacts to go and change that and does this, that, and the other. I don't want it. So I'm not going to build it. And I wanted it to look a bit like SwiftUI, because again, my journey into cross-platform stuff, I found that like, yeah, I didn't love where I was at, and I actually quite like SwiftUI. I'm very used to it. And if I'm building something, then why not sort of rob from what I love and bring some of that into what I'm building. And the biggie, something that can run shaders across different platforms, because the things I build that mess around with video and visuals, they need shaders. So I need that there. Talking about shaders, yeah, if I'm going cross-platform at some point, I'll end up having to work with all of these things. It sounds like a nightmare to me. I only really know that one, and I don't know that one that well, just well enough to do my apps. But thankfully, you don't have to. Skier, which is used underneath the hood for Compose, can handle a lot of that. They're going in a good direction. I did my sort of due diligence because I kind of think about the future of what I'm building, and they're well supported. Like it's what Chrome is built with. It's in various different things. And sort of down in the weeds a little bit, I know that some of the stuff they're doing with Vulkan and with Metal and those side of things, they're actually doing a rebuild of some of that side of the system at the moment, which will then mean things get even faster when they execute, which is good for me because I make things with lots of filters all over them that bog down the GPU when you've got loads of them. So, Skier it is. And this is where I ended up architecturally. So, thinking this all through, this is sort of a high-level view of how it works. It's not fully reality. There are a few bits here where like things loop into each other, and the hosting view has to send something that goes all the way down. But like, this is broadly it. So, the bit as a developer for making apps is the bit in the green. That is the bit that looks like SwiftUI. Everything else is plumbing to sort of get things on the screen. But this is broadly how they link up. And over on that side, we've got the C bridge so that I can call out from Swift into Skier, because Skier is a C++ library. Really what I'm doing is I'm taking the functions on the Skier side, wrapping them up, and then the Swift core is calling them. Like, it's very much just a translation layer. And I'm very thankful for Claude at that point because I don't enjoy writing C, and thankfully it can do it good enough at least to do a translation layer for me. So what do I have? Well, I thought a dry screenshot of Xcode would be a beautiful thing to show everybody, so there you go. It's a big Swift package, and what I wanted to really sort of call out on this is, there we go. You can see here, like, I've got a class here for a size struct, but it's basically exactly the same as CG size, right? It's again, I'm translating things because I want things to work in a very similar way. I've needed a lot of similar components. But because I want to go cross-platform, I can't import core graphics. So here we are. I've got a lot of like very, very familiar reproductions of things in here. But again, I'm thankful to be palming that off to LLM development and then, you know, editing it back when it gets it wrong. But that's been the approach I've taken, to just sort of go, I like the familiarity of having these things, and the concepts are broadly needed anyway. Getting closer to actually talking about what it looks like, the DSL parts of the domain-specific language that I'm building here, the SwiftUI Lite bit, looks like this, and we'll zoom in a bit here. Come on. But you'll see there in the comments, as an example, we've got an H-stack, 2 buttons, and that looks like SwiftUI with a VX in front of it, right? That's what I wanted. I put the, I gave the prefix in front of it so that I would know when I was programming inside of this thing as well, just to sort of make it quite clear to myself. But yeah, it looks a lot like that. So again, I'm getting there. It's plumbing's working, things are connecting, and I'm starting to build up the Lego blocks to be able to actually build apps with it. Along the way, this has required a lot, and this isn't really the end of the list. It's like, these are all the sort of things that are in there. A lot of them are now working, but if we zoom in on one, you'll see I've got a shader view in there, and that's me getting very specific again. I can now, if you remember back to, I can do what I want. I don't just have to have primitives that mimic SwiftUI. I can make my own ones that are going to actually do the thing that I'm trying to do. So that's been quite fun. I can just go yeah, I need a thing for that. I can put it in that end and then it's everywhere and I've got it. If you've ever wanted to get into SwiftUI's source code and make it do the thing, that's the place this is now starting to get to for me. At a very basic level, right? It's doing stuff. It's certainly not doing as much as SwiftUI and not as proficient in what it's doing, although again, perhaps debatable in some corners of SwiftUI. Another thing, I've got alerts down the bottom there, and actually on the other end of the screen that you now can't see, so that's great, is that I plan to call out to the system for that. So I don't have to reinvent everything. Like, if I want an alert, I can send something up to the hosting view. I can probably make a protocol that triggers an alert and, you know, move on in life. And there's some things with an approach like this that it's going to be easier for me to just do, like text entry. I don't particularly want to make a rich text entry thing. It is fiddly and complicated. And in the beginning of my research on all the similar things, that is one of the things that a lot of immediate mode GUIs fall down on, is actually nailing that. So I'll probably find a happy way to make it basically work, but there's not a lot of text entry in my apps anyway, so you know, that'll be fine. But again, I can do that. I don't have to just labour away and make everything all over again. So again, a bit more code, just for the sake of it, but you can kind of see here, like, yeah, this looks like a SwiftUI view today, right? I've got state on the go there, and there's a whole subsystem for grabbing that and delivering it back. But a more complicated one, this one's got a view model over there on the side, and then I've got a special property wrapper for view models specifically. Anybody remembers we had state objects before we could have classes in state in SwiftUI? I hit a very similar edge with this and kind of realised why they did that for a while. And I've decided, again, I'm not optimising early, so I sod it, I'll have two property wrappers to do the job, that's fine. But it's working. And yeah, it's able to lay things out on the screen. So, where do I want to go next with this? I need to ship an app. I've done all this work over the last few months, and it's kind of at the stage of like, I've got 0.1 of the framework, but like, if I don't get the dopamine out of actually making the thing, then it's just going to be a nice idea. So I'm at that point where I need to pivot into actually making a thing. And yeah, that's going to, I'll try and do what I set out to do and make a more audio-like UI as I do that, start theming. Probably end up discovering I can make a load more primitives that I can leave in the box myself. That'll be really fun. I probably won't go cross-platform just to get there, because right now it's working on iOS. I don't want to spend another 2 or 3 months messing around with getting it to Android. So I'm gonna, even though I want to, I'm going to pull my rates and kind of try and just get the app together, maybe even actually put it in the store. And then we'll see about 1.1 maybe is I can look at Android. So I'm trying to just manage my time a little bit, because my wife and kids do actually need to see me. So but yeah, that's the main thing though there, is I'm going to keep having fun more than anything. And I think that's one thing, like, we've got day jobs, we're doing what we're doing, we get an idea for something, you're like, oh cool, I've got a side project. If it's not fun for you, then it's either got to be really lucrative and you think this is going to how you make your millions, or it's got to be fun. Otherwise it's not going to pull you through and keep going. So I just encourage everybody, with anything that you do like that, just have fun. There's you know, in the previous talk, like, we can use tools and things to mess around and bring things in that we might not have had time for before. Same thing applies to projects outside of work. But more than anything, make sure you're having fun. So yeah, that's that really. Anybody have any questions?
Maybe, Simon. Do you have any kind of insight as to why audio apps in particular
A little bit.
Yeah.
So if I think about the history of audio applications on the desktop, one thing that happened way back when was that they ended up with VSTs, with audio plugins that are synths that you can bring in, and then they'll work in any of the apps. And at that point, I think the paradigm was very much like trying to replicate hardware. And then I think that history has progressed over time, and now what you get on iPad typically, there's quite a big iPad music scene. It's the same deal. And then there's a whole plugin system there that you can link a lot of these things together. I wish I could do it with video, the APIs aren't there. But yeah, I think that's why. Yeah. I don't know, people just seem to like it being sort of that pseudo skeuomorphic.
Yeah, it's an interesting, because even Apple themselves, right, people think they might use all standard stuff, but GarageBand's got loads of like knobs and buttons, and if you change to a violin, the font goes like all fancy.
Yeah, yeah, it's just seems to be part of the culture, and it was a bit of a reality check for me as I sort of started getting into playing with iPad music apps, and I was like, yeah, there's a gap here between what this looks like and what I'm building. But I might be wrong, you know, I might put something out in that direction and everybody's like, yeah, whatever, mate. But yeah.
You mentioned you're using Claude to write C bindings to the C++.
Mm-hmm.
Have you looked into using C++ directly from Swift now that they kind of support it?
No, but that might be something where I can trim that layer out from the sounds of it. So, yeah, you put that on my radar. I didn't know we could do that.
Yeah, it's fairly new and there's significant limitations to it. But I don't know. It depends exactly on what the skier API looks like, whatever they work on.
Feature me would be probably quite happy to kill a layer inside of this. So yeah, I'll make notes of that one. Cool.
What did you say actually what the API building is? Is it like a synth? Is it the ultimate DOS, some sort of synthy, something like that?
So, right, hold on a second. This isn't the app, but it will give you a bit of an idea of what it is. So, if let's see if we can do this. So, let me just play the last half of the middle half of this evening. So you'll see there that, okay, the latency is awful, but I'm able to manipulate a shader right there. So a basic shader is doing a gradient. The app that I built, okay, this was a demo for everything that I've got in the test app, but it would be like that. If you imagine the bit in the middle and then visualizers and things that are much more interesting than that, but hooked up to the microphone, reading levels out of that and then actually manipulating some of that automatically. So like if you remember Milk Drop Winamp days ages back, like that but a bit more modern. Yeah. So that's sort of the master plan, and then the good part about that is that I don't need to think too hard about like bringing video files into the mix and that sort of thing. So again, I'm thinking about what can I build quickly rather than spending ages on another rabbit hole. So that's why that as well. And like I've got a bit of audio analysis in my existing app, so I'm going to pull that framework in. I've got MIDI inputs in there, so I'll pull that in, and hopefully I can kind of cobble the Lego blocks together quite quickly. So yeah. Of course, if I want to do it on Android, I've got to rebuild those frameworks, but like, there we go. Yeah. But no, and then, just let it play, come on. Yeah, this is the sort of thing that I'm nerding out about a lot on an evening. I've actually, the latency's too bad to show it, but imagine they're fluid animations, right? They are actually fluid animations. But you know, if you think about like, okay, I've got a VStack with a bunch of content in it, one of them changes size, the things around it then have to move. Like that's the sort of rabbit hole I've been down of like trying to guide this to where I want it. And yes, I've been using Claude and a lot of that stuff, but like to get it to actually work, I've had to spend a lot of time going, what do I want? How do I want it to be? What are the options? But I'm really proud of the fact it's actually now animating. That sort of unlocks like the next stage. So, yeah, I feel like I can put a pin in it and maybe start making a new app over Christmas. So, yeah. Cool.
Just in the interest of time, we might just take 5 minutes while we get the one sorted and